Well, good morning, everybody. Here's my plan for the forecast video today. I want to bookend things with a height analysis. What I want to do is I want to tell you what the pattern looked like that we've recently been in and we're about to come out of. We're going to talk about what this is going to mean for temperatures and precipitation, the tropics, and then I'm going to dig into later on in this video what I think might be a height pattern to discuss for winter. All right, we're going to jump over fall and go right to winter just because I think there's some interesting analysis to see there. I will finish up though with some South America weather forecasting. Okay, so we have seen multiple blocking archetypes across the Pacific Ocean. And when I look back on all of it from the 22nd of August to the 8th of September, I think I saw more often than not a Rex block, a high over low. And what this did was just produce tremendous amounts of heat up the west coast. We saw deep troughs dig into the east. And there was that relationship we talked a lot about between the Bering Sea and this eastern United States trough. And it's really kind of showing up here in historical analysis. Now, what we want to know is just what did this do? Because if we find ourselves back in this pattern at some point, which is possible, I think in early October, what did it do? It did this, right? We were breaking record temperatures in the Northwest, a lot of fire activity throughout the Western United States. We saw British Columbia breaking records. And meanwhile, several climate reporting districts from Oklahoma and Kansas through Missouri and Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, parts of the MidSouth, all the way over to the Appalachian Mountains, that deepest shade means that from the 21st of August to the 10th of September, those spots just set their new all-time average. So it's an average, okay, lowest temperature during that time frame. And of course, we did have some frost issues. I put this in my report on Monday. And what you can see here is I went out and just looked everywhere in this particular area that we saw temperatures below 35. You get patchy frost in those conditions. And the map kind of zoomed in there, shows you the results of this. Now, the overall low-level wind pattern was also incredibly important to decipher and discover as well, because there's a lot of discussion about the eastward retreat of the Bermuda High, for example. You can see it spinning here, no longer opening up the Gulf. In fact, we saw more flow coming out of Canada with dry, cool air, digging into the Great Lakes, for example, into the Northeast. And along the west, it was relatively weak flow overall, just because of the presence of the large ridge that extended into western North America. When you look at just the moisture, okay, this is what's kind of interesting with all of this. There was, all right, a plume of moisture that came into the west. This is what got the southwest monsoon finally going. But the cooler colors represent very dry air, which was what kind of penetrated into, this half of the country, while the moist air around the Bermuda High was just way out in the, way out in the Atlantic Ocean. All right, with all that being said, what did we get out of it? Well, here's your last 2 weeks of precipitation expressed as a percent of normal. This pattern was still able to make storms in the plains. Now, you can see the southwest monsoonal storms happening. There were even at times storms that were down here in the southern plains as well, and there was one good shot of rain that moved through parts of Tennessee and Kentucky, which is why you see the above average precipitation there. But from the northern plains, which this is going to change in a huge way in the next 2 weeks, into the Mississippi Valley, the Ohio Valley, and then up the East Coast, especially here, coastal Carolinas to the Mid-Atlantic, very, very dry. You go back over the last 30 days and those areas continue to glare at you with very, very dry conditions. And I was just thinking this morning, I went and dropped a pin right at the very southern tip of Illinois. You can do this in the local forecasting system. So I just dropped a pin here where southern Illinois meets Missouri, meets Kentucky, almost meets Tennessee as well. The town was Wyatt, Missouri. And what was interesting about this was just to show you that we have places down here where the last meaningful rainfall was in late June. I mean, if you go from early July, till now, there's been barely 1.5 inches of rainfall that has come through. And the evaporative process has been incredible. If we come over here to the water budget, you'll see that, look how wet things were. But starting in July, there has been a total evaporative loss of about 8 inches of liquid out of the atmosphere. And I just want you to see these tools and use them. By the way, we're going to add some more stuff to this. I will put my GDD calculator back on this. I'm sorry. And we're going to put the snow on here too. I just was rebuilding some of those graphics, so we'll get all that in here for you as well. But I want to come back to this precipitation pattern because there's been kind of 3 big epicenters of drought. If you go back again to mid-July, it's the Four Corners states. Yeah, I know we've had some big monsoonal storms that have gotten in here, but the broader area which of course includes Lake Powell, Lake Mead, the Colorado River, which can get a supplement from some of our thunderstorms here with water flow, overall didn't. We then have our area in the Mid-South we've talked extensively about, and then parts of the Eastern Corn Belt, getting to the Appalachian Mountains and all the way up into parts of the Northeast, and including, this part of the Mid-Atlantic and the coastal Carolinas as being very, very dry. Now, one last thing to point out with this, since we've talked extensively about it, is the Mississippi River. It's 4.27 feet below low stage. And with this upcoming forecast looking as dry as it is, I think that number is going to continue to go down. The pattern is once again blocked up, but the block has moved. We've now seen deeper troughs coming into the Gulf of Alaska, coming into the Northeast Pacific, and then it's kind of just built itself up into a large central North American ridge pattern. It resembles an omega block, but it doesn't stay in the omega block formation for 10, 15 days. It's a bit more transient. What's helping it is the fact that the jet stream across the North Atlantic is absolutely screaming right now. But this is going to be bringing in some serious heat and unfortunately the risk of very dry conditions. But with this new and deeper trough action happening in the Northeast Pacific, just take a look at the water vapor imagery here. We've got deep lows moving into Alaska. They're just curling around the base of this broader trough, which means we punched out that big ridge that was here for about 30 days. And yesterday, the deep trough that came in that brought in all the showers and storms here across the Northwest, locally very heavy rainfall. This was also responsible for popping some storms in the central U.S. Look at these right here, coming through Kansas. This was pretty potent. And before I go any further off of this image, I do want to show you that we need to be watching the tropical convection here, as we call it, this Central American gyre. But we've got some stuff going on in the Pacific, and we'll take a look at the Atlantic in just a few moments. But I want to talk about this because the rainfall totals, we had some really healthy rains in Northern California and Oregon, spotty storms all throughout the Pacific Northwest. And over the last 3 days, let's blow that up real quick, some of the bigger storms, like I said, coming out of Colorado and New Mexico into Oklahoma, getting into parts of Kansas. In fact, some of these in Kansas were hailers. I did bring that up actually in Oklahoma and Texas as well. Our last 3 days of maximum estimated hail size here, pretty large, including this part of Colorado too. All right, with all of that, where are we going in the near term? We still have the flood watches out here and here. We've got fog issues once again. Matt did a great job describing this yesterday. Area of patchy frost risk in northern parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, right? All that, where kind of the corner where it all meets. Need to keep an eye out on that. And some coastal flood issues here. All right. Now, bigger picture, where are we going? The severe weather risk over the next 3 days, which, by the way, Andrew is working on a new severe weather page for us. That dude is a severe weather. I almost called him a severe weather junkie, but that would be a disservice to this kid's talent. I shouldn't call him a kid. I'm sorry, but he's an incredible meteorologist. Can't wait to get his stuff on here. But look, here today. We're watching there tomorrow on Friday, and we're going to keep our eye this entire week, or into this week, down here in New Mexico, Colorado. I think that's going to be a critical place to watch because we could have our heaviest rains there too. I will run out the high-res NAM just quickly to kind of see where this is going to go. And as we play it forward through the middle of the day into this afternoon, you can see that deep low curling, see the isolated storms coming up here. This is by 7 o'clock tonight. We play this forward, and we watch a storm system maybe move through the Red River Valley. Now, this is overnight hours. You got to understand that even though you see it in the model, this is the model's reaction to some of the early morning, events taking place now. We'll watch it, but could be a storm system rolling through parts of, North Dakota into the northern parts of Minnesota. But beyond this, watch it again. This is now Friday afternoon, evening, where the storm's blown up right here, all out ahead of the deeper trough that's in the western United States. But that ridge that's in the middle part of the country is massive, and it does not seem to want to move. And helping it, stay in place for a little while is the fact that the Bermuda high is closer to the Azores, and this has been a constant narrative. So what we end up getting out of this as we play this forward is that if the Bermuda high stays here, we kind of get this, it's not really proper to call this, but there's like a reflective high that forms over this section of the southeast, the mid-south, the delta, the lower Mississippi basin. And what this does is we're just stopping the moisture transport from the Gulf, but there's still southerly flow here, which means we can still get plains storms, simply because there's moisture left over from some of the recent rainfall, and we can still squeeze some out. It's not completely dry. It's just not the full pull on the Gulf moisture. But as I play it out here to the 14th, 15th, 16th, all right, we still see that southerly wind with a big, bold, high-pressure cell here. But the reality is the dictating factor in this is, look at this. That's where the Bermuda high is. It's not Bermuda, it's Azores. So we keep going forward, and does it come back? No. And that's why any of these new little weak tropical disturbances, they tend to curl their way around the Bermuda high, meaning that here we are at the peak of the hurricane season, and there's no threat in the Atlantic right now for any of these systems. So, that's just one way to look at this. The bigger issue is that while the troughs eject, okay, so out of the west, this new pattern, and the ridge builds into the central part of North America, there is pull in this area, and you're going to get some good lift here. And that's why we continue to see the risk of possibly some heavy rain, but definitely some storms that start in the Four Corners. They come up the western plains. But the issue is where that high pressure sits, you're in this broad area where we're not expecting much of anything in terms of rainfall. I have my doubts about a couple of things with respect to the European model's prediction of precipitation. And some of those doubts are going to come from here and here. And I want to tell you why I'm watching the Caribbean, the Bay of Campeche, parts of the Gulf, and then the East Pacific. And here's some of the ideas. The European model seems to not be very excited about bringing anything out of this area. Even though I think conditions are going to start to ripen in this area for some sort of tropical development, the European model is giving low probability to it. It's giving much higher probability over the next 10 days to these African easterly waves. But the issue here is that if you keep the Bermuda high by the Azores, these guys just go out to the open ocean. They're not going to be a threat to North America until something can shove them over there. So we look at all of this, and we're trying to make some assessment about what's going on here. And I just want you to be aware that there are a few things happening down here, which is common in September when the Bermuda high is an Azores high, okay, where you can get systems coming out. And the GFS model, the last two runs, I'm just going to fast forward here. This is already to the 15th, 16th, 17th. See this? It's trying to cook something up down here. And if it goes right through the Yucatan Strait over the loop current, I mean, that is like seed water. I mean, it's just perfect for the development. I don't know what seed water even means. I'm sorry. It's just perfect for getting this thing to get going. It's like a perfect, spot. And the newest model run is trying to take something up here. So what's the point? Just keep an eye on this area. Because if something does come out and it goes in through here, boy, it'll come into the southeast. But the 0Z run, by the way, took it all the way over here to Mexico and Texas. I'm just saying that the model is it's finding itself developing systems because environmentally it's ready. And you're going, whoa, what's this monster? Well, the problem is that big guy, if it does form 10 days from now, okay, it's going to curl around. See, just look at this. It's going to go around the Bermuda high. So there you go. You need to watch it. Let me rephrase. I'll watch it. Matt and I'll watch it. Andrew's going to watch it, and we'll tell you about it, okay? From there, I want to come over to the Pacific. There is still, as I mentioned, the risk of some of the moisture from this next would-be tropical system to kind of turn its way into the southeast. But bigger picture, is I don't see any tropical development in the Western Pacific that could do this and bring a storm system to really disrupt the jet stream pattern across the North Pacific as we go forward. But we do need to keep an eye. It's called Invest 95E. And some of the forecast model runs are trying to peel this off in this direction. Most of them are doing this. And I just, it's an important thing to look at. But the reality is that the confidence has not been built into the forecast yet to tell you that some of this is going to be coming into the Baja or Mexico or into the southeastern United States. Southwestern. So there you go. I love this part of the website. When you just click on maps, you can get 5 models and just see the next 7 days real quick. It's a nice snapshot. So my eye is drawn to a couple of big things, okay? We've got a hole here. We know why that's there. We have troughs coming into the west, so we're just really ripping off systems that are going to go through here, possibly bringing in some heavy rain. And we just need to watch. something here in the models. I mean, look at the AI's version of this, like that. And I want to say that if you're in Colorado, New Mexico, this part of Texas, Ty, if you're watching this morning, hey, every model's got some rain for you, bud. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to bring some of this through this part of Texas. Okay, upper level pattern. What's driving all of this? Okay, there's your trough coming into the west. That's the one that we're going to watch for the next few days to come out, bring us the chance for bigger storms here. Out ahead of it, big blocking ridge and all the heat. You can see the omega look to this, although it's like a very odd looking omega because it's got a little extra tail on it over here. But there it is. That is your omega pattern that's working its way in through this weekend. That's going to prevent, see the trough? Watch it not go through the block. And therefore, it's going to take all the way to the end of next week before we start to see something a little different. But overall, this pattern washes out in the models by 10 days. I mean, there's still something to it, but I don't see anything of great note in the European ensemble that far out. So I want to show you at least what the models are doing in terms of putting rainfall in. And if we look here at the European model from this morning, you can see where the trough ejects, and through the weekend, storms here. Still more storms to the northwest, but we're going to watch parts of North Dakota, southern Saskatchewan, southern Manitoba, maybe getting over to the Red River Valley for the biggest storms. Okay, inside here, not a whole lot, but keep an eye early next week on what's happening off the coast of Georgia, North and South Carolina, because the European model by next Tuesday is trying to bring in a little pulse of rain, possibly some storms, maybe of some tropical nature into North Carolina, Virginia. Now, this is one of our driest spots. So to see that, we're going to watch it carefully. But I'm out a week in the forecast. Let's keep going out there beyond this. Let's take it out 10 days. There's 10 days out. And as we go even further, notice that there's something going on. This is way out there. Day 10, 11, 12 in Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, another round of rain. But I'm just going to go all the way to the end of the forecast. And you come out here 360 hours, and there's just a huge area in through here that's got nothing. I mean, just very, very limited chances of rainfall. And that's just continued to be a major concern going forward. I know they're kind of small across the top here, but some of these models now have taken out the better chances of the week 2 rainfall here. Now, the map early in the morning that you get from the CPC is yesterday's map. All of these have updated. Those meteorologists are right now working on the new map. And there's a likely chance that they go over to something a bit more like the European has from this morning's run. Just a drier signal here. What I'm interested in, though, again, is there something going on here to pull some moisture into the Four Corner states through California out of the Eastern Caribbean? Oh, my goodness, the Eastern Caribbean. This is the Eastern Pacific. And I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it. All right? All right, on to temperatures. Frost risk over the next 7 days. Matt was going after this yesterday. Yeah, this pattern doesn't bring a frost back into the picture. So what do we see in terms of high temperatures? Well, California's cold. I mean, compared to average, highs in the low 80s. I mean, Phoenix, hey, we're going to get you down to 100. Meanwhile, deep into the 90s here. A lot of Missouri is going to have a high temperature on Friday, 95 degrees, 97 on Saturday. Look at these temperatures coming through the weekend. That's Monday, 100 down here in Memphis. And that's how it plays out. And you look out there even farther, and the models are not showing it, but this is the pattern for the next 5 days. And this is out day 5 through 10. You're going, what are they not showing? I think, that once you get out here toward the end of September, this is the 5-day time period ending on the 24th, the 5-day time period ending on the 25th and 26th. I think there is something cooking in this that may drive more cool air into the eastern half of the country, but maybe not until the beginning of October. And that is purely based on speculative outlooks based upon what's going on in the North Pacific right now. I'm not even going to give you more than that because I'm so unsure of it. But overall, this is where the models land. But as I mentioned, they wash everything out at that far. All right. So you can go back and just kind of pick your poison here on the extended models. This would be the 15th of September to the 15th of October. Because the models are so anchored into the next 2 weeks, you get this dry pattern here and here. And the GFS, that's the model forecast you see now compared to the ECMW. Well, the ECMWF is trying to deliver better rains into this area, but I wouldn't hold my breath just yet. I think what's going on here is that the current run is wetter in this area, and so it's just leaving it there for the whole time period. What I'm very concerned about is this. I mean, we will be getting on in parts of the Mid-South. We're going to be getting on, if this verifies, that's 90 days. That'll be 90 days in this area of drought development, mid-July to mid-October. So this is extremely concerning. So is this. But what we don't know is what's going to come out of the Eastern Caribbean, the Western Caribbean, Bay of Campeche, the Gulf. I mean, all 4 of those spots are all going to be needing to be watched. Okay? So beyond this, the lid is coming off the tropics. Okay? So if we've been looking at this MJO signal for a while, from the 15th, 16th on, there's the lid. We'd now see it coming off in this area, which means the second half of the hurricane season, 45 days of it, is going to be active. But the bigger picture thing as we look out farther is, as Matt talked about yesterday, we still have strong trades. We've had them all summer. And we continue to see this signal. See the reds here and the blues there. That tells me this is La Nina. This is a typical La Nina. Indian Ocean, we're getting these westerly wind bursts. Pacific Ocean, easterly wind bursts. And the two things are giving you this ocean temperature pattern. See cool here, cool there, and all the warmth is gathering here. This is just what occurs when you get a net flow like this. And what was Matt talking about? This is our breeding ground for getting the best rising motion in the atmosphere. But I'll be honest with you, while this is significant and important, I'm very much interested in the longevity of this. Now, we've been talking about it for weeks. I'm going to give you more analysis on this North Pacific warmth, especially in the Northeast Pacific, because so much attention is going to be paid to La Nina. But I'm going to be focused on this for a while, because some of the longer range models, as you get out there toward December, keep it warm. La Nina gets going, but they keep this warm. So I went back and looked historically at December's, and I specifically went into, where's the map? Let's show the map. There we go. Into that box. And I said, give me a time series of the ocean temperatures in that area, which is what it produced here. And what I found was that when you stitch them all together, what we tended to get into winter, and this is not good news for the West Coast, is high pressure here. Big upper level ridge. So the jet comes over the top and then dives into troughs here. Now, it wasn't every year. You can see the years I used down here at the bottom. But I just picked off those top ones. And what I'm thinking about with all of this is if you make a composite of the winter temperatures, now remember, we've got the winter of 2013, 14, 14, 15 in this. And we just drove cold air into this region. So what this gets me thinking about is, what does the Pacific end up doing to the North Atlantic pattern? Do we drive cold air in to set up our greatest contrast right in through here, which means you get a lot of those, what are called Miller B storms. They come out of the Mid-South. We sometimes call them panhandle hookers, and they go straight up the East Coast. Or do we get those Miller A's, which start off down here and go? And does this mean the West is under a big ridge and no subtropical flow? That's the temperature outlook. This is the, let's go over and look at the precipitation. Again, I'm just using those years we just talked about. It's got drier here, a little drier in the Midwest, but it's got this much closer to average. I don't see actually a strong signal on the precipitation other than the drier West. This may outdo what's going on with the La Nina. I don't know. It's just another perspective, and so that's why I watch it. I'll watch it. We're going to watch it carefully, okay? Last thing I want to talk to you about today, when we look back at the percent of normal precip to start September, we know that folks are already able to plant. It's been very dry, right? We've not brought in tons and tons of moisture to a lot of central Brazil. But again, I'm going to come back to the concept, pick whichever model you want, and it'll tell you the story you want. Like the European model of the next 7 days, watch how it changes as we look out there like day 10. Rain's coming in here. You look at week 2, it's still just generous on rainfall across some growing areas that need it to get started. But you compare that to the GFS. GFS is like nothing. Nope, bone dry. Day 10, bone dry. Week 2, bone dry, except for in Argentina, maybe Rio Grande do Sul. But overall, 2 weeks, nothing. We're not going to be actively planting. So again, it's this story of the GFS, which is the extended forecast here all the way to October 15, very, very dry. And then you're like, well, what's the European show? Well, fine. It's going to rain. Be fine. We're going to get this crop going. You say, Eric, pick me a model. I'm just going to say every year that I can remember forecasting for South America, the monsoon comes in fits and spurts. It just doesn't anymore just come in and go. It kind of comes on, off, on, off, on, off. And then it really starts going by the time we approach middle October. So we're going to have to wait. But I think so are a lot of Brazilians on planting, given how dry things have been. And we'll need to keep an eye on this. All right, that's it. I'll talk to you again in the morning. Have a good one. Thanks.